Good evening, everyone. I, Lovely Kaur, welcome the esteemed panelists, the host tonight, and the audience. Kshitij, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, takes immense pleasure to conduct the Virtual Technology Summit 2022, where one of the best minds from varied industrial expertise come up together to discuss and share their views regarding the most well-received topics by the youth. This year, the summit will be conducted in three virtual sessions with an amplified zone of reach. Tonight is the first session on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. I have Mr. Debasi Samanta as the host of the session. Currently, he is an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Professor Samantha is actively working in the field of human-computer interaction and cyber-physical security. He is an author of 3 books and more than 80 journals and 120 conference papers of international repute. He is the recipient of Best Author of the Year award by the Computer Society of India. I'm honored to have you, sir, and I'm honored to have all the panelists together on the stage. So I now request Mr. Samantha to take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Professor Samantha, we can't hear you. At least I'm not able to hear you.
Is it possible to get started already? And maybe we wait for Professor to join whenever he can. So we're not holding up over 500 people for longer than 20 minutes. Would that be all right?
Go ahead, Bharti, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
I think that's appropriate, Bharti. I think
Yeah,
we
go
should
ahead.
Yeah, maybe we can just go around, the panelists can. So I can start because I spoke earlier. I'm
Sure.
Bharti. I'm the head of product at eBay. And I lead up product teams working in building machine learning and AI-driven products within data, personalization, identity, and internal search. I'm based in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and it's 2:30 p.m. So not quite this evening as as the rest of you probably in India. I am of Indian origin. I did go to school in India and lived there many years. I have family there. But yeah, I've been in my role at eBay for a few months, and product teams in my domain are building really high quality, innovative machine learning driven products. And when Lovely reached out to me, this was a topic very close to my heart. So I'm really excited to be here and to be talking to all the students as well as fellow panelists.
You want to go ahead, Abhishek, and then Bharti? Oh, sorry, Bharti, you're already done. Go ahead, Abhishek.
Yeah, sure. So, team, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining from. This is Abhishek Goyal. I am joining in from India itself. I am out of Chandigarh, and I head the IoT and the digital engineering practice for Infosys globally. We work for Fortune 500 clients across the globe, and we work in the area of industrial IoT, machine learning, AI from the perspective of engineering and the smart products. We also work a lot on the smart connected cars, autonomous cars, electric vehicles. The core mechanical electronics and the software part of the cars is something that we really work on a lot. That's my brief background. I am also an IITian from IIT Kanpur. Almost, I think 20 plus years back, I did my graduation.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Professor. You are audible
Yeah,
now.
I'm audible now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So sorry for the inconvenience. That is okay. Now it is sorted out. Okay, so a very good evening to everybody. It is a great moment for me, and I take this opportunity to welcome you all in day 1 session of Technology Summit Kshitij 2022. So today's topic of discussion is ML, DL, and IoT. So these are the technology buzzwords nowadays and considered as the game changer. In this regard, I would like to share a quote. If you don't know machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence, then you will be a dinosaur in 3 years. This is the recent and famous quote from Ian Goodfellow, who is a pioneering author of deep learning book. He has invented many AI techniques, and which is really an astonishing aspects in today's computational intelligence. Thus, today's topic is very timely, and I hope for a nice discussion on it with views from industry experts from leading industries. Let me introduce the members in our panel first. So I'm introducing Abhishek Goyal. Abhishek is a VP of Infosys Limited. He is the global practice head for digital and cloud engineering and IoT at Infosys. He is a proven thought leader and holds a US patent from USPO as the primary inventor. He has authored several white papers in international forums. He is an alumnus of XLRI Jamshedpur, doing MBA, Business Management, and IIT Kanpur, BTech Mechanical Engineering. Thank you, Abhishek, for your presence in the panel. Our next honorable member, Bharti Dali. Bharti is currently the global head of product for data, identity, and personalization at eBay Glassfields Group. She has over 20 years of experience in data analytics, product management, and personalizations with travel, retail, telecommunications, and technology companies. Her current team at eBay are working on include using machine learning for personalization to improve customer experience and enabling seamless transactions between buyers and sellers. We are privileged to have Bharti in our panel today. Our next honorable members in our panel, Dr. Rohini Srivasta. So Dr. Rohini, as National Technology Officer and Head of Strategy for Microsoft India, is responsible for leading strategic initiatives to accelerate digital transformation across industries and the government. Over the past year, she has been instrumental in steering programs that leverage AI and other emerging exponential technologies to drive innovation for inclusive socio-economic growth. Thank you, Madam, for your presence. Here with us, Pradeep Mishra. Pradeep Mishra is Head of Technology and Engineering and Chief Architect of the TCS IoT platform, TCS Connected Universe platform, TCUP. He has over 29 years experience in software engineering, research and methodology consulting. His areas of expertise include embedded systems, RFID, IT, infrastructure, real-time analytics, and cloud computing. He holds a BTech and MTech in electrical engineering, both from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. So thank you, Pradeep, for your presence in our today's panel. Finally, I welcome Ram Kumar Venkatesan. Ram Kumar is the SVP of Engineering at Cash-Free Payments. He is responsible for scaling the engineering team to enable rapid innovation and enhance customer delight. With over 20 years of experience in AdTech, Big Data, e-commerce and database technology in US and Indian markets, Ram Kumar is passionate about scalability and sustainability. Ram Kumar holds an engineering degree from BITS Pilani and an MS degree in computer science from Arizona State University. He completed his post-graduation in software enterprise management from IIM Bangalore. Thank you, Ram Kumar. So now we can start our discussion on the topic machine learning, AI and IoT. May I request attention, Abhishek, for one question that I'm now throwing. The global technology market was 11.33 billion in 2020, rose to 15.50 billion, and is expected to grow up to 152.24 billion by 2028, and it is exponentially following the growth. Here are my questions. What are the grounds on which such a huge expansion is expected? I repeat, what are the grounds on which such huge expansion is expected? Major changes that will be deployed as per you to gain this. Yes, post-pandemic being one reason, and what all others may be the reason for that. So Abhishek, please express your view in this regard.
Sure, Professor. I think a fantastic question to start the discussion. Definitely, I think all of us come from the technology sector, and we are witnessing unprecedented growth over the last 2 years and over the last decade as well. And this is actually, in my view, it is fueled by a few things, and I want to call them out quickly one by one. So adoption of cloud definitely has made the access to technology all pervasive, ubiquitous, easy and affordable. Be it public cloud, private cloud, polycloud, multi-cloud. I think the multiple cloud options people have, the enterprises have today, and the consumers also have to consume the various services and applications. So that has made the access really, really very easy and achievable for all the people. Apart from cloud, our entire ecosystem around the smart devices, the availability of internet at just a fingertip. Even in the villages in the tier 2 cities of India today, you see people having smart devices, some kind of a tablet, some kind of a smart device. And this was something that was not possible probably 5 years back or 10 years back. That definitely has given the power to people to control their destiny, to control their transactions, to control what they buy, what they consume. This is a second big shift that we have seen in India. Third is the availability of 4G and probably in the future 5G networks definitely has made the data transmission, the internet much more accessible to all the people. So data also thrives on the network, right? So we have got those options in the big cities. We also have fiber optics now coming into vogue. So that really has accelerated the entire journey towards cloud and data around the cloud ecosystem. And I think recently Government of India announced the initiative on the silicon wafer manufacturing under the umbrella of Make in India and Digital India. And as you know, in the devices, in the various cars, homes, your mobile phones, there's a lot of software running on in the embedded form in the chips. So I think that is again one more area which is really giving a thrust to the industry in a big fashion. Apart from that, I believe the overall understanding of digital ecosystem, the digital literacy uh, amongst the people has really gone up, and I must thank the academy as well, because I think institutes like IIT Kharagpur, NIT, and ISC Bangalore and other institutes I know they are having now curriculum which is geared towards AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, augmented reality, probably in the future metaverse as well, which is able to give us the ready-made talent for the industry needs. So I think all these combined really are giving fuel to the industry in a big way. And the second part of your question was the major changes that will be deployed for us to maximize the gain. So in my view, and my fellow colleagues can also add, my view is cloud will become the strategy of choice, the default strategy for all purposes going forward. Be it even in the core mechanical robotics engineering world, the physical world, and I come from that world, I see my customers, even there, we have a lot of OT, the operation technology now going on to cloud. At least the transactions, the controlling of the SCADA and the PLC control systems, the actuators, we are now able to control remotely through cloud. So cloud is going to be the game changer. And obviously, on the cloud, a lot of data is residing, and there has to be a lot of play around AI, ML, deep learning, NLP, and whatnot to make sense of data that the cloud is acquiring. Beyond that, I would also say that we are also seeing a big trend of low code and no code. In the past, people used to write thousands of lines of code in C++ and Visual Basic and whatnot. But today we are seeing organizations like Pega and all coming with low code, no code, which there's no coding required. So even a non-technical person, a non-computer science graduate can actually create nice fancy programs and utilities. I think that's the second thing that we have to really focus on. And the third is, I think the overall workforce and the workplace transformation is happening. And let me quickly explain, then I'll stop. Work means the work is shifting towards cloud, shifting more toward digital, and we'll all become dinosaur unless we adopt all these new technology trends. And in that context, the workforce also has to be enabled, and industry and academia have to collaborate on that front to enable the workforce. And the workplace means our physical offices, our ways of communicating. Like today we're talking on MS Teams. It's a collaboration platform, again running on Azure cloud. So even the workplace transformation is happening. So all these three forces have to come together to create the new world for all of us. I hope I have answered your question to some extent,
Yeah.
but I'll expect my fellow colleagues to please add on.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek. It's a nice explanation. I really, okay, it's good. I hope that we got the answer. So let's move to our next question. Our next question is, so there has been increasing in cyber crimes when we have extensively deployed machine learning, AI, IoT in every aspect like business, country data, etc. So may I request attention of Dr. Rohini to answer what, according to you, should be the measures and laws enforced to reduce such threats? So, Dr. Rohini, please.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the question. You are absolutely right that cybersecurity is a major issue that we are all facing in the world, where more and more work and life is being carried out in the digital world. And one has to remember that as a technology area, this is not a new area, but what has happened in the recent past is that the attack surface for cybersecurity criminals has increased because of all the devices that we use, all the services that we consume, as well as the fact that most of our data, to the example that was being raised before me, Abhishek was talking about, a lot of our data is getting on the cloud. The data is getting out there. Our lives, our personal data is out there on the cloud and in our devices, in our data centers, and etc. I think there are a few things. From a perspective of an overall framework, where we are going down is the idea of what is called zero trust. What zero trust is an approach to cybersecurity. It's a terminology which says that you will authenticate anybody who's trying to. So at the end of the day, people are looking to access data. That is what cyber criminals are after. They're looking for data that is of value. It could be bank accounts, it could be your password, it could be many such things. So I think the idea of cyber trust, which is about authenticating everybody, providing minimal access that is required at a particular time, and endpoint protection, and making sure that whenever somebody asks for any assets or any service, they are authenticated and authorized at the right time. I think this whole idea of zero trust is what is the framework under which various technologies come into play in terms of identity and access management, threat protection, information protection, security management. But the issue is that this is not about technology alone, because a lot of cybersecurity really happens through what is called social engineering. Because you get something which looks like a website, which looks like something your bank website, almost like that, and you don't pay attention to it, and you click on it, and now you have a malware that has gotten downloaded. So a lot of issues which are not even technological, but have to do with social engineering and our behavior in the way we access information. That has to also do with certain things. So certain things like multi-factor authentication, certain things like not using strong passwords, right? All of those become important for, even if you use passwords, even in fact, one needs to go password free because passwords are actually a big challenge. But the point being that the user understanding of cybersecurity becomes equally important, because technology is only one element of it. Social engineering and people's behaviors also matters a lot. Fraud is increasing. And finally, so that's a common person. But finally, I think the place where organizations like IIT Kharagpur and others can also draw a lot is to increase the number of people who are coming with cybersecurity expertise. Because expertise in this space is definitely lagging, or other skill sets in this space is definitely lagging demand. And especially if you go down into areas of privacy, which are further issues beyond cybersecurity, where data is in terms of personal data and what is available to the for others to look at, and what different levels of privacy, and with the PDP bill in the horizon, privacy becomes another space that one needs to watch out for. So I would say those three areas: technology, understanding architecture of a zero trust, making sure that a common person understands their level of understanding of digital worlds, so strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, things like that, and increasing cybersecurity skill sets in the country that can address the need for expertise in that direction.
Yeah.
That's
So thank
very
you, Rohini.
insightful.
It's a nice
Yeah.
explanation.
Sorry,
I
can I
hope,
just add to what Rohini just said? That was amazing. Thank you, Rohini. And you
yes.
mentioned like two or three things about cybersecurity and how IIT or other educational institutions could better educate and better prepare students with knowledge of cybercrime and how to avoid it. From a European perspective, in Europe, we have what you call GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation. And I'm not sure if something equivalent sits in India, but here it is a lot more difficult to actually access personally identifiable information. And governments have taken a really big step and penalized companies several millions of dollars a year who do not comply. So perhaps there is an opportunity for an Indian government to take a similar rigorous step. Also, there's also an opportunity to increase awareness and education starting in secondary schools, because children today from 10, 12 years old, they have mobile phones, etc. And they should be able to understand the implications of downloading or accessing sites that may not be so secure, and they can also perhaps help educate their parents as well. So thank you. That really resonated with me as well. Rohini.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Bharti said. The government of India has, been conscious of this. They brought out a bill in 2019 called the Indian Data Protection Bill, and that's still in draft stage. And they created a joint parliamentary committee to review that. Those review comments came out in December 2021. So we are expecting this bill to become a law very soon, actually, because I think it's in the final stages, actually.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is related to a recent issue, the issue related to unemployment. In a country like India, where unemployment is already a big issue, I just want to know the views of our esteemed panelist. how will we prevent the rise in unemployment by the development of AI, ML, or IoT? So, member, please express your views in this regard.
Okay, I'll take a shot at it. I think I mean modern technology, AI, IoT, these are actually they are giving the uplift to the economy, world economy. Actually, in fact, uh, this is a large part of the GDP of any country. Like some people are saying, digital technologies are contributing to more than 60% of the GDP. And if you read reports by the World Economic Forum, you'll find that technology is actually uplifting, the GDP and the economy. So we expect these things to actually create employment and not the other way around. I mean, we are going to see a huge boom actually as we go ahead, and I think it's not going to take away employment. That's for certain.
Yeah, I want to add to Prateep. In fact, as per a WEF report, 58 million jobs will be created in the new digital world. And see, what you have to understand, yes, there'll be some displacement of some jobs which are repeatable, which are mundane in nature, they will not have any future. People have to do right shift of their skills, right? That means they have to upgrade their skills, enhance their skills, and probably even fetch higher compensation, higher payouts for the new age skills. Net they'll be increasing the jobs. That's what Gartner, WF, everybody is saying. And this is also because, as Prateep said, right, ultimately, if the organizations are benefiting in terms of the top line, bottom line by adoption of digital technologies, they'll invest more. They'll invest more in infrastructure, they'll invest more in people, they will hire more people, they will open up new service offerings. And that's what we are seeing around the globe. So I think, but people have to adapt, they have to change themselves. If they think that they can stay where they are today and nothing will happen, I think they are living with a wrong notion.
So this is Ramkumar here. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
finally managed to make it into the presenters. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I think this very topic close to my heart as well, right? So making India, make for the world, and I think this decade is going to be India's decade, and we've already seen great signs in the first month with so much investments coming into the startups, right? So if you're going to be worried about unemployment, someone else in the world is going to take these opportunities and going to be creating products and services and then export them to us, right? So just like how it was maybe 20, 30 years back before liberalization started, if we don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So we might as well take the lead and adopt AI and ML and make in India and then make for the world. The challenge with unemployment is that people are not rightly skilled, right? I think that's the problem. And we can actually use AI and ML to customize the education paths for the students, right? So we can actually use all of this to upskill them, and then we'll have new opportunities for them to shine in, right? So the same thing, I think I've studied that when the first steam engine came out, people were really, really scared that it's going to take all the jobs and everything. And the same thing, whatever happened in Industrial Revolution, people were scared, right? But we went into higher order problems, right? So right, just like what those things solved, now AI and ML is taking on from the physical labor, it's taking on what the mind did things, but it's going to take on things that are repetitive, right? So that is what it really, really does well. We train it, we give it the data, we make it a sort of a good model, and then it repeats again and again really, really well. And how much ever it does, right, there is going to be scope for us to do things that it can't do, right? For example, AML can, based on history, do certain things, right? But humans are great in adapting to changing environments, new things coming out, and these models won't be able to do that, right? So there will be new jobs, new opportunities, and more time for really to unleash everyone's potential. So I think this is going to be like a really, really welcome opportunity and huge scope in the agriculture sector. We are an agrarian economy, and if that can be made really, really better and we get much, much more productivity out of this, and being in a sustainable and green way, our farmers are going to make more money. And if the majority of India is going to be thriving with these additional income and prosperity, that bodes the best things for India, right? So I think this is a great opportunity in front of India.
I really like what Ram said there as well. Like there is a lack of skill set, right? So for example, in my company, in eBay, we have lots and lots of jobs open for engineers, for data scientists, for product managers with ML experience. And we're paying a lot of money, right? So, and the salaries are and benefits are extensive. And we are still not able to find the right skill set and the people to fill those roles. So what you said about displacement of employment is spot on there, Ram. And there will be a growing need for people in different fields with ML experience, and global companies like eBay will continue to hire. So it's just a displacement of skill that has been happening as well.
I'll just add one last comment to this interesting discussion, as given there are students in the audience, that I think you'll have to look at your journey as just the start of your learning journey, because you're going to have to learn continuously, because technology is changing at a very rapid rate, and you will need to think about updating your skills, your knowledge at a rate that will keep you very busy. So think of this as just the start of your learning journey, if I may put it that way.
Yeah, thank you. So that last year was terrible for all of us. I'm telling about the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So which actually, right, okay, second the whole world actually. But in spite of this COVID-19 pandemic situation, 2021 turned out to be an outstanding for startup culture in India. Technology is a huge backbone of this glory. My question is, how was the year 2021 for the industry? What major evolvements and innovations in technology led to this startup culture, particularly in India? So please express your views.
I go ahead, Abhishek.
No, Rohini, please go ahead.
No, I was going to just start the conversation by saying that, India has been seeing a massive growth of startups for the last, I would say, almost a decade. And I think the critical mass of startups and then people who have been successful going back to the ecosystem and being mentors, a lot of that positive flywheel is in the motion. But to your point, 2021, I mean, yes, it does stand out, but to me, it also feels like a bit of a continuum. I think 2020 obviously was a major shock because people were just recovering from the pandemic. I think 2021 people began to realize that that's an opportunity. I think a lot of mind shifts also changed. Consumer mind shift changed in many ways. So, for example, what you might have earlier not even conceived earlier, for example, going to a doctor and having a consultation virtually, that became a mental block was removed. And same way on, whether you look at retail or you look at any, manufacturing, every industry went through several mind shifts. So that's point number one. Second, I think in India, the big commercial, the large enterprises, right, which form the major part of our economy, 40+% of our economy, they were, I think, lagging behind the digitization, if I were to put it, about 2.5 years back. And in a way, the pandemic was a big wake-up call. And so there's a huge acceleration happening. And startups are also then realizing the opportunity. And of course, there are many other trends happening in terms of India's stack and many other, exponential trends are taking place. But there is a real positive, I would say, positive sort of feedback loop that's playing out here in terms of why startups are doing well and will do well. Despite, I would say, despite the slight valuation bubble, I think it is in, but that's a different point.
Yeah. So building on what Rohini said. So yeah, I was looking at some data. So in 2021, Indian startup ecosystem raised 24.1 billion USD worth of equity investment, and some 42 startups became unicorns. This is amazing. This is really amazing, and we really feel proud about what India has done. And despite the pandemic, in fact, I would say pandemic actually has given the impetus to the digital adoption in India. It's all in the mind of the consumers also, right? So today, as Rohini said, I'm not hesitant to consult a doctor on a video call. I'm okay with my daughter studying on a laptop for something, right? So I think in that way, COVID has been a bit of a opportunity for India, which India has grabbed with both the hands. And I think the earlier point, right, the access to smart tablets, smartphones, access to internet is really the backbone, and good network coverage, at least of 3G, 4G, if nothing else. I think that is really accelerating. Also, from the enterprise perspective and the software perspective, the availability of open source solutions and platforms has really made the technology much more affordable. We don't have to go to the monolithic ERP packages and buy some costly licenses. So if I want to do a startup, I can go to some open source platform and get some gig workers and start off, right? And buy some space on the cloud, and there's no need to buy some costly boxes. So I think the enablement also has been there, and obviously government of India is doing a lot of things, right? So there's a lot of incentives, a lot of SOPs the government is also providing, and technology, and also I would say the digital talent, because I work with the global talent across the globe. Although we have crunch everywhere, eBay has open positions, everybody has got enormous number of open positions. But I would say relatively, India still has the best digital talent, at least in terms of the numbers. Uh, and I think the academy are also warming up to the fact that we should quickly adopt the new digital curriculum, the new curriculum on the digital technologies, cyber security, AI, ML, deep learning, whatever it is. And I think that's also really helping us from the supply side. So I think all these shifts, the COVID, the government push, the digital talent plus technology evolution is really putting us in a good spot. And this is a decade for India, as Ram also said, and we have to really latch onto it.
I'd need to drop off the call at this point for my next call, but thank you so much for inviting me and having me on the panel and for these excellent discussions. I learned a lot. If you'd like to continue these discussions in future with me, please just send me a LinkedIn invite. I wish you a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bharti.
Bye bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, when you are talking about the growth, at the same time, we have to be a little bit serious about sustainability. I think sustainability is also a major concern. What measures are taken care of to keep a constant check on sustainability? According to a 2018 report from Intel, 74% of 200 business makes in environmental sustainability agreed that AI and IoT would help solve environmental problems. I just want to know whether our panel members agree with this or if they have different opinion on it. So panel members, please.
Okay, I'll start the conversation. I think this is going to be driven top down. Governments have made climate commitments. In turn, companies are making climate commitments, and I think the business plans of companies are now they have to be aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's going to happen in a big way, and I think the standard approach, which earlier had been reduce your footprint, whether it's resource or carbon. Then, of course, now people are going in a major way to reuse and refurbishment. For example, I've heard that a large percentage of, for example, computers used by Google in its massive data centers is now being refurbished and reused. That's amazing. And then finally, people are going towards a carbon free energy usage. I mean, they have set targets from themselves that maybe say 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we will not be using any carbon based energy in our operations. So these kind of things are coming. I think that thing has set in. And interestingly, these are also going to promote a lot of economic activity, a lot of employment, and there's an upside to it as well. I mean, it's not just work, and there's a lot of upside and potential here actually. So I think overall, I think the trend is good, and I think we just have to align ourselves with this. And India definitely is investing majorly in all the things, especially green technologies, use of solar technologies, electric vehicles. I think all that is happening, and we'll have, of course, AI, IoT, all that is helping them achieve those efficiencies, and it's going to continue. Okay, so over to other panelists to add to it.
So I'll just give a couple of examples. Sorry, go ahead, Ram.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead. Yeah.
Just a couple of examples I'll give to how AI, machine learning, IoT, etc. Of course, there's a lot that needs to happen, and we are just barely scratching the surface. But a couple of examples in terms of how these technologies are helping. So if you think about electricity power grid management, right? Smarter grids, which allows you to be efficient in terms of the way you both produce as well as consume electricity. There again, predictive forecasting, real-time monitoring is helping to better manage demand and supply. Similarly, if you look at water management is a big area where both monitoring and optimizing water consumption at scale in agriculture as well as industry, as a huge use of IoT technologies as well as machine learning, etc. Right? I mean, the list goes on. I think there's a lot of potential to use these technologies, but I think it's also a question of organizations and societies realizing that it's not going to be one approach that will solve everything. It is going to be a multi pronged approach, and therefore the whole rise of ESG, which is the environmental, social, and governance, as a big area that organizations are now putting weight against. And I would say the younger generation is looking for those signals from their employers. They are asking for they are more conscious about the environment, and they are looking for organizations that are conscious along those dimensions.
Yes, Ram Kumar, please.
Yeah, maybe I'll just give a quick real life example, right? So with the advent of FASTag, right? So a trip that I took maybe 2 years back before COVID, which would have taken 10 hours, was cut down to 8 hours because I did not have to stop in each of the booths, right? That's a huge fuel savings, and that is sort of sustainability. I've also seen initiative coming along saying that we are going to even get rid of these booths so that with RFID and GPS tracking, people will be charged for how much they use the roads, right? So there's going to be a lot of fuel efficiency coming out of this. And also data centers are getting moved to, say, colder places, right? So that, right, you don't have to cool these systems. Naturally, it'll get cooled, and I've even read about some of them going under sea, right? So there's going to be innovation happening in those areas. And then AI/ML, interestingly, is going to be used even to save energy, right? So apparently Google has done all that, and about 35% energy savings has been achieved, and I'm sure other cloud vendors would do that. And so when we move our processing to the cloud, and if they can take care of the energy savings, right, all of us are going to be becoming more and more energy neutral.
Yeah, I want to add, Professor. See, I think Rohini mentioned about the energy, the smart grid metering and the energy management. I think that's a fantastic use case. Apart from that, in the field of agriculture, right, the concept of precision agriculture, wherein you actually look at the right depth for sowing the seeds. You look at the sand quality or the soil quality. You also look at the irrigation needs. You also do a drone-based surveillance. So that is able to, from that, what is happening is we are able to maximize the yield by minimizing the input. That's definitely helping us on the sustainability front. That's one good example we have from the agriculture perspective. If you look at from the environment monitoring and surveillance perspective, you can actually predict the cyclones. You can predict the forest fires in California because you know the various parameters which will lead to those outcomes. So you have the historical data, you can run the ML programs, algorithms, and you can prevent some of those hazards and some of those calamities. Electric vehicles again, and the autonomous vehicles, a large part of those vehicles is actually driven by software in the car, which is again powered on the cloud, but driven by the logic of AI and ML and IoT to a large extent from the sensorization perspective. So I think all these initiatives, if you look at it, they will have a big tech component, a big tech play. It could be AI, it could be ML, it could be IoT, it could be cloud, it could be something else. And even if you look at the supply chain, the entire concept of circular economy, right? How do you conceptualize the product? How do you engineer, manufacture, ship, and then retire it to death, basically? How do you dispose it off? I think this all requires a good traceability. And in that context, the concept of a digital thread or a IoT driven digital thread becomes extremely, extremely important to trace the entire origin and the entire death of the product. So I think these technologies are there to help, provided they are used in the right fashion.
Yes. So nowadays, our engineering students are crazy about ML, AI, deep learning, Internet of Things, etc. So I don't know whether they are passionate about it or they are keen to build their career or their prospective employment. I just want to know what are the major technical challenges that need to be solved for ML, AI, deep learning, IoT, etc., to gain more firm grounds in the technological world.
Yeah, so maybe I'll go first, right? So yeah, as Professor said, right? So there is a lot of hype right now in AI ML, right? And for definitely its applicability is universal, right? Across every industry, it is applicable. Having said that, I think Abhishek also pointed out, right? So AI ML is possible today because of layers and layers and layers of innovation over years, over so many different career paths, right? There's mathematics involved in there, there's statistics involved in it, there's electrical engineering making the processor faster. As we've talked about sustainability, where all other environmental sciences needs to make all of this possible, right? So I think the opportunities are galore across the board, and there is opportunities for applied AI ML as well, right? Even if it's not directly AI ML. How do I utilize these maybe no-code AI ML platforms and build really compelling solutions for the customers, right? So there are opportunities in everything, including technology, which needs to make AML even more faster, to make it less energy consuming, and to again make it sustainable. There's a huge opportunity in security. I think that's maybe one thing that maybe currently we are a bit lacking in India compared to the other countries where they've invested in security a lot, right? So information security is a huge concern, and it requires really, really critical and smart minds to beat the hackers, right? So that would be another great area to sort of deep dive in and specialize in, make all these AI/ML secure and trustworthy to further accelerate that, right? So different areas for people to pick up, and if you become a winner in any of these areas, you do really well.
Okay, I'll go next. One of the things students should understand is that some of the most interesting innovations will happen at the intersection of computer science with other sciences. You know, whether it's biology, whether it's chemistry, whether it's life sciences, whether it is material science and engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. You know, so those most interesting use cases are going to come from there, and there the scientist and the engineer has to work very closely with the data scientists, right? So it's very difficult to do interesting things if we don't know the basic sciences, you know. So that's something all students should know, and therefore you will find that most companies are not only hiring AI ML engineers, but they're also hiring PhDs in life sciences, or masters in chemical engineering, or PhDs in aeronautics, you name it. So every engineering branch now has an overlap with data and data sciences and AI ML, and the interesting things will come out only when all the engineers they come together, right? So that's one. I think we should not forget about the basic engineering and sciences. So that's number one. Number two is to make things happen in the real world. And I'm sure Abhishek, with his experience, will know that the real world is really complex. When you go to the real world, data integration challenges, simply breaking down silos of information, making things talk to each other, understand the data, the ontology or the semantics of the data. These are real hard problems. So data engineering, in my view, is also very important. And I think we need a large pool of engineers who can do data engineering really well. And when all of that comes in, I think we are going to see extremely good use cases implemented in AI ML space.
Yeah, I want to add, Professor. So when I go to a lot of colleges, right? I go to a lot of colleges in Chandigarh and nearby areas. People ask me that I am a mechanical engineer. Do I have a place in the AI/ML world? What relevance can I bring? So my simple answer is you need to be very strong on your core skills. It could be a science like energy science, environmental science, physics. It could be mechanical, electrical, whatever it is. You have to be very strong. Technology, you can always learn. And technology has become so easy to learn these days that people can learn very fast, but the fundamentals have to be strong. Professor, I think you are not able to hear you.
Sorry. Okay, I repeat it. I'm extremely sorry. So here I have one question, specific questions. Do you think we will ever be able to teach a computer teaching a computer through ML or AI through AI? So what is the idea is that building AI using AI only. So whether it is possible or it is okay, just simply a dream, just dream versus reality.
Maybe I'll take a crack at that. So there is already you might have learned about this something called OpenAI and the large models which are NLP models which are getting created. And there is now something called a co-pilot. So if somebody who's doing programming, you can actually have somebody, a machine that is programming along with you. So very often you can write a comment as to what you want the code to do, and actually it will pop up code. So you will see Python code coming up in front of you. What does that mean? That means, software jobs are will have to also change along the way. So that's an example where you have, machine learning creating machine learning code, basically code for creating machine learning. So you could kind of take that argument further. Similarly, if you look at many machine learning techniques where one is using synthetic data. So you're using machine learning to create data for a particular scenario where there's autonomous driving or similar such techniques to be able to create more data for machine learning. So in a way, machine learning is creating the data for more machine learning. So some of that is happening. It's a very exponential technology, and it's hard to really make predictions about full or full what's called general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. But I think some of those very interesting trends are starting to happen.
Yeah, so I've been, very interesting question, and I was thinking about it, right? So, so the deep learning is like we are trying to mimic the brain, right? So it's trying to mimic how our neural network works and how can we do that, right? To my take is that to an extent we are trying to mimic what we are, and we can go to a certain level. But I think if you really go to the real intelligence or the intelligence, right, I'm not sure it can replace humans or become any day equal to humans in a way, right? So we are creating this, and we are imparting certain things or how to analyze everything into it. So if it can be as intelligent or more intelligent than us, that intelligence has to be in us, right? So which is a little bit impossible, is what I think. So philosophically speaking, it can't be equal or definitely not greater than us, because that intelligence will be in us. Is my sort of take, but I think it's going to get better and better and better, right? So, but we are going to coexist very, very happily, co-live very, very happily. It'll help us do our repetitive thing. Maybe if in a very crude analogy, the grinder does a real good job of making dough better than humans today, right? So AML will do, say, book recommendations and route recommendations, everything really fast, repeatable, won't get bored doing it. But right, as I said earlier as well, certain things are going to be the domain, and we are going to be definitely better than AML, is my thought. Yeah.
I'll counter that a little bit, Ram, because I was reading something. I think this point about saying that human intelligence is the greatest kind of intelligence, I think there is a little bit of a fallacy there. Because the term intelligence itself is broader. So there is actually a line of thought that says that one shouldn't assume that no disrespect to the human brain, but human intelligence is not the only pinnacle of intelligence.
Definitely, I agree, right? So what I meant was what we create, hence if human intelligence is limited, what we create has to be less than equal to that, is what I meant. It can't be greater than human intelligence.
That jury is out.
So, yeah.
Yeah, really questions and answer session was enjoyable. And from my side, there is no limit on questions, but my time is limited. As the organizer, fixed my time till 7:45 so that I can conclude it. So I just want to conclude with my last question. This question is the involvement of IoT in our daily life? So do you think that the involvement of IoT in our daily life is a threat to privacy?
Okay, let me take it up. See, again, I think Bharti spoke about this, right? The difference between security and privacy. They are two different things. So it also depends on how much of your data privacy you need to secure and how much of your data privacy you are open to leave it to public to consume. So I think it's also a question of regulation and personal choice on the privacy side. From security perspective, I think there are enough authentication layers and security layers at the edge level. Edge could be your car, it could be a home. It's the actual physical device or asset. Then there are IoT gateways which look at the various data coming from the edge, and they also encrypt the data coming from the devices. Then it goes onto the network. There are enough security protocols on the network, and there are various industry grade protocols there. Then when it goes onto a cloud or it goes onto your mobile phone which runs on the cloud, again there are multi-level authentication layers there. So I think if we understand how these security aspects have been built in, we use them properly and don't just blindly accept anything at the bottom of the form, I think we'll be secure. Uh, Privacy obviously is something which people have to really understand. India, I think Prateep spoke about India, about the government coming out with some bills. But as of now, yeah, privacy is sometimes intruded. But again, it's a personal choice. How much you are careful, how much you're not careful. But security, definitely, I feel that more and more security measures are being put in place. Even if you go to Azure cloud, I think there are native cloud security features which ensure that whatever data comes onto the cloud of Azure or AWS or whatever be it, it's totally secure. So that's my view. IoT is there to stay. We just need to use it properly.
Yeah, I'll just take from where Abhishek left. When we talk of IoT, clearly there are two types of IoT, two buckets or two groups or categories. One is what we call as consumer IoT, and consumer IoT is very close to people's lives. I mean, we have heard of smart refrigerators and smart homes and stuff like that. And sometimes people have taken it to an extreme, like this time in the Consumer Electronics Show, people have demonstrated internet connected baby diapers. Think of it like if your baby is making the diaper wet, this data is going to the internet, and then it'll come as an alert on your phone that go and change your baby's diaper. So yeah, so there's a real danger of this. I mean, this is rather a funny example, but there are more serious examples where people's personal health data has somehow gone into the insurers and they have changed the premium, although you never gave consent to using that data. So those kind of dangerous things have also happened. uh, Personally, I don't work in that space. I work in the industrial space, and we have a different kind of problems there. And as Abhishek mentioned, our main concern there is, you know, the standard security and stuff. Bringing security best practices into the industrial IoT data pipelines, etc. So, yeah, but in consumer IoT, I think there is a danger, and it has to be regulated. There has to be punishments for violation. But first, as I said, in countries like India, we need to bring the laws and regulations in place, right?
I'll just add a little bit there. I think privacy is a topic that in India is not appreciated as much as it needs to. I think people's just awareness of the topic as well as appreciation of it needs a cultural change. As well as the skills to understand it, because the kind of decisions, the kind of whether it is employment, whether it is promotion, whether it is the example that you gave, Prateep, right? Some of those decisions are getting so inbuilt into our systems that if we don't think about privacy as a design principle from the start, it goes down into deep into algorithms without our realizing. So I think while the regulation is coming up, a lot of organizations, are paying a lot of attention to the ideas around responsible artificial intelligence, ethics of AI, and privacy is a very built-in part of it, including techniques such as confidential computing and federated learning, etc., which are privacy preserving in nature.
Okay, thank you. So it is really a nice interaction. You have thrown many lights with your own views, and really it is valuable to all of us. We enjoyed it. With this, I would like to hand over the session to Lovely for the further proceeding. So Lovely, please.
Tons of thanks to the esteemed panelists, Bharti Dalela, Ramkumar Venkatesan, Rohini Srivastava, Abhishek Goyal, Prateep Misra, for being patient, cooperating at every stage, and sharing your views, which came out from decades of experience. And I'm very grateful to have you all on board. I thank Professor Samantha for moderating the panel discussion so well. Lastly, I thank all the technology enthusiasts who stayed tuned to quench their thirst, to hear from such a great panelist. Also, sorry for inconvenience caused in the very beginning. Definitely, what worth at the end is the takeaways that we are going to take. The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice, by Brian Herbert. And with these thoughts, I formally conclude the panel discussion, and I'm grateful to all of the panelists and the professor for moderating and taking the session so well.
Lovely. We all want to wish all the students all the best in their academics, in their careers. And we are looking forward to join us in the industry very soon.
Thank you all and all the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you, sir,
talking.
and thank you, ma'am. That means a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks to
Thank
all.
you,
Okay, good
professor.
night.
And nice meeting all the panelists. Great. Thank you.